Okay, now that we've looked at the gross anatomy of the kidney, let's take a closer look at the microanatomy of the kidney. In particular, a structure known as the nephron. Nephr means kidney, and the nephron literally means the functional unit of the kidney. It's the part of the kidney that does the work that we're going to be talking about. We looked at the gross anatomy and we talked about how the lobes of the kidney include the cortex and the medulla, or the middle of the kidney. If we take a closer look at one lobe of the kidney, we can see this structure, the nephron, nestled inside. Now, this is just one. There are many, many nephrons in each lobe of the kidney, and we're going to talk about where they're positioned exactly on the next slide. And here, actually, you can see the little openings, the papillae, that where the urine drips out and is caught by the minor calyx here. But let's take a closer look at a larger view of the nephron and at least go through the parts and their general functions. This will start to make sense only after we've gone through the blood flow as well. So try to have patience as you're looking at and learning the structures. Okay, so here is one place where the circulation intersects with the renal anatomy. All of the yellow here is the nephron, but the nephron has to receive blood in order to filter it. And so what you see here are some arterioles, one that brings blood into this capsule, this ball that we're looking at, where it forms a capillary bed. And then one arteriole that carries the blood out of this structure. So we're not going to name the structures until we get to the blood circulation, but I want you to keep in mind there is a capillary bed here. And just like all other capillaries, but even more so, this one is super leaky because we want the plasma to come out so that it can be sorted and filtered by the nephron. Okay. This capillary bed inside is called the glomerulus. And so the capsule of the nephron that surrounds the glomerulus and catches the filtrate or the plasma that's leaking out as it passes through is known as the glomerular capsule, the capsule that surrounds the glomerulus. So its job is really just to catch everything that's leaking out of the capillaries. And after that, the fluid passes into this really curvy, twisty tubule. And it's named the proximal convoluted tubule, abbreviated PCT, but you need to know the full name, so don't get too caught up in the abbreviations. Proximal means that it's closest to the beginning of the nephron. Convoluted means that it's twisty-turny, curvy. And tubule just means that it's a tubule. So its name means it's the first twisty-turny tubule that you come to in the nephron. And in the proximal convoluted tubule, the substances that have been filtered out and collected by the glomerular capsule begin to be sorted. So anything that's useful to the body, say like a molecule of glucose, will go through the proximal convoluted tubule, and the tubule will actually remove it from inside the tubule and put it out here in the interstitial space where it can be picked up by the blood supply again. Anything that is not useful will remain in the proximal convoluted tubule and passes into this next structure, which is known as the nephron loop. You may have learned about the structure of the nephron in the past and learned this as the loop of Henle. That is the older term. The modern term is nephron loop. The nephron loop continues the work of the proximal convoluted tubule, sorting good substances from bad substances and putting them where they belong accordingly. But it also plays another important role in water conservation, which we'll talk about in more detail later. Briefly, its job is to make the medulla of the kidney salty. And if you look over here at the position of this nephron and the nephron loop, you can see that unlike the proximal convoluted tubule here, the nephron loop passes into the medulla, and nephrons that have this structure in the medulla are delivering salt to the medulla to create a trap for us to catch water later. So more on that in a bit. After passing through the nephron loop, the tubular fluid goes into this next structure known as the distal convoluted tubule. Distal means further from the beginning, convoluted means twisty-turny, and tubule means tubule. So the DCT, or the distal convoluted tubule, is the second of the twisty-turny tubules that we come to in the nephron. It also takes part in sorting useful substances from waste substances and moving them to where we need them accordingly. But it also plays a very important role in acid-base balance, which we'll talk about in the next chapter. After leaving the distal convoluted tubule, the fluid enters this next structure, this straight structure known as the collecting duct. It gets its name because it collects urine or tubular fluid from multiple nephrons. So you can see other nephrons are releasing their fluid into this collecting duct. The collecting duct then leads to an opening, the renal papilla, which the urine comes out of and is collected by the minor calyx. However, the collecting duct isn't just a tube that carries stuff. It, because it also passes through the medulla, plays an important role in trapping or reclaiming the water that we filter out of the plasma. In fact, it's going to work very closely with the nephron loops in order to take advantage of this salt trap that the nephron loop is creating. Okay, so that's the nephron.